the Supreme Court order on the 1st of February, what it did actually is unprecedented, because the Supreme Court Justice or the Chief Justice unduly took power that is not rested with him, unconstitutional powers onto him, because he himself took the power of the Judicial Service Commission, which is unconstitutional, and suspended constitutional articles of 157, 159. So in fact, before a state of emergency, a similar situation existed in judiciary. So it was a judicial tyranny. It was a judicial assisted or judicial initiated coup that was unfolding. So with that, even in that difficult situation, the president and the government wanted to work out the differences. At no time, government said that they don't, that the government did not respect the order, and we wanted to implement the order. But given some of the points in that February 1st order, it was very difficult for the government to implement it, because then there would be a situation where we cannot return back. There were cases where some of these convicted criminals, there were questions of double jeopardy. There were questions about the Supreme Court itself, because some of the cases had been dealt with finality by the Supreme Court, which was again revoked without actually addressing into the issue. The state, including the Prosecutor General and the Attorney General, have not been given any right to represent the other side of the story. So these are all unprecedented cases that the government needed some explanation, some sort of working out with the Supreme Court. So the President, the Attorney General, the Prosecutor General tried to take an audience with the Chief Justice, which he did not give to the government, and that's why the implementation of the order delayed. But then, after this has happened, the Supreme Court again, I wouldn't say the whole Supreme Court, but the two judges that are now arrested started acting very violently and acted, I would say, irrationally, and we thought that they could do anything to really bring in chaos to the country, because they took files away from the criminal court to investigate a bribery case of an individual who was not a judge. He was an administrator of the judiciary, and there was allegation that this was related to a crime of themselves, the two judges that are in question. But when it came to the level that this was happening, and then unconstitutionally when they put on official agenda impeachment of the president, which they can't do, again constitutionally they can't do, they debated on it, but fortunately, because there were other judges who had some sense and understood the situation, did not agree to that, the impeachment did not happen. But in any of these scenarios, if it were to happen, that would have been really crisis. So the president took a decision in order to bring the country into a stable situation. He needed a state of emergency to look into those cases only, only suspended the articles for him to able to look into these issues. As you know, the suspension of articles did not include anything that has to do with normal public, that has to do with the businesses that is running right now. Nothing to do with the broadcasting, nothing to do with anything of daily normal routine line, but only exercise the right given to the president by the constitution to the limit where he can make the functions of the state go smoothly. And as you know, since then twice this has been revised, and those suspended articles have been released, because the Judicial Service Commission is in session, the Supreme Court is in session, all the courts are in session. So I would say that for people who really doesn't know the facts, or who don't understand the facts, this could be alarming. But what the president have done here is to really bring stability to the government. If we had let go of the situation and released the criminals, I mean, I have to add that these criminals have the charges of embezzlement. They are terrorists. They have been under the charges of trying to kill a president. and many severe crimes like this. So all of a sudden, without hearing a case, I don't think it is possible. It is constitutional or is legal precedence to release criminals like this. So only government was asking or seeking advice from the Supreme Court how we go about it. Because if you do something, for example, release someone from their some of them are alleged, and their cases were just only being heard in the criminal court. So without having the chances of going through the 3 courts which anyone is subjected to, Supreme Court cannot release these people without a hearing. So this was what unfolded from the 1st of February, and it was exercised with caution and only to the limit that the president required to run the country safely under the power installed by the people on him.
Well, one of the concepts that have been misrepresented throughout this crisis is the separation of powers. A country is a country that boasts a democratic system which has the 3 powers of state separated. But then we should understand that in the Constitution it says it should be independent yet complementary. So how did this misunderstanding play into this?
Yeah, no, this is exactly our point. I mean, the 3 powers should be separated and independent, and one power could not put undue influence on the other. So even the Supreme Court judges, they are subjected to investigation if such a situation arises, and they can themselves represent in the court or within the proper procedure, systems. Judicial Service Commission is that authority where there is a case or alleged in a situation where bribery or what we know now happened, and Judicial Service is where we can take these issues. But within the order that was released on 1st of February, first thing they did was to annul JSC. So they, in a way, took the power to their own hand, where the separation of powers did not was not exercised. So that was the situation where the government have to intervene and try to find a solution to this situation, because it was not the government initially who did it. Our constitution was written, a new one adopted in 2008, with the understanding and with the hope that everyone on each part, the 3 parts, are sincere. But it is very difficult to predict the individual behavior of people. As a system, it's a good system. It should function. But when individuals start taking those steps, like the CJ or the Chief Justice did, then the other power have to react on it, because overall the head of the state is the president, and he should ensure the proper running of the country through his powers within the constitutional rights.
Well, one of the media has been flooded with allegations, I would say speculations of military intervention. How does that come into play in a situation like this in the current age and time?
No, unfortunately, Maldivians and who have been ex-presidents, when they call upon military intervention to the country, then it becomes a major issue or is a major talking point. But under the international norms, there is no way that this happens, because there isn't any situation in the country where there should be a military intervention. If you go out into the street, walk around in Mali, there is nothing of that sort of malicious intent or any such violent activities happening in the street that a foreign country have to be involved here. But when the ex-president Nasheed calls upon it, then it becomes something that people talk about. But we know for sure that our neighbors and other countries, they respect the international norms, and there is no situation where it is necessary for intervention. And whenever we have got assistance from outside, that is in the situation where there were external forces who initially was in the country, and it was the government calling for help. In the last situation, as you know, India was in help, and if there was a situation, the government would call for help, and of course our neighbors would be the first to call upon. But there is no such situation right now at the moment for any military intervention, and the government of India have never called for a military intervention, and we know they wouldn't call for intervention. But as it is a free world, I mean, even in India, there will be people who calls upon, who exercise their own judgment or speak what they think. But the government have never called for an intervention, and we know they won't. We are in communication. We are very close friends, and we are the closest friend in the neighborhood. So I don't think we deserve this kind of outside intervention right now, because there is no such situation.
Well, since the declaration of state of emergency, international community has been vocal about the issue. It hasn't been taking sides. This is a misunderstanding. Most of the international comments that we get are urges to go into dialogue, for the polarized parties to go into dialogue. How much of a way out is the all-party talks right now?
No, I think that is the only chance, the only way out, because we have to start communicating. The government since 1st of February have requested or have sent an invitation for all parties to join in for dialogue, and I have actually renewed that call after we saw some changes in the political dimension. As you know, some of the parties are strengthened with those whom we saw with the other party. I'm talking about the Qasim and the previous ex-vice president joining the Qasim's party. So there's political movement shift, dynamism right now. So we have renewed the call again for parties to sit down, and I hope, and I really sincerely hope that there will be very soon agreement to come to negotiate, to sort out our differences through dialogue, because at the end of the day we have to think about our nation. Nation first is our motto here. So we can't let foreign intervention happen, and we shouldn't call for foreign intervention, because we have the capacity to solve these issues ourselves. And at the end of the day, it is the people of this country who will benefit if there is peace. It is the people of the country who would be in jeopardy if we have fighting on the street. So we shouldn't go for that. So we should try to get into party dialogue. All parties should talk, and I think that is the way out.
However, the reality of the situation is that there are people who are still calling on their supporters to go to the streets with their demands rather than go to the negotiating table. So do we see the party dialogues happening anytime in the near future?
I hope that this will come very soon rather than later. And always there are those elements who calls for violence, and that will happen. But I don't think we can afford that right now. And I know for sure that the police services and the MNDF will not allow, even the public won't allow that. We have seen that call over and over after the 1st of February, but we have not seen the situation getting worse since then, because everyone, like you said, was confused to know what is happening. But since then, government have been releasing, I mean the police services have released the reason why the justices are apprehended, why they are in question, and these evidences have been shared with the public. So public now understands what has happened. There was a real case for this to go ahead, but I can understand the international community being nervous about. But at the same time, they should understand and they should look at the facts, and that's why I've called the other day on an interview as well. We are open for the international community to come and have a look at the facts. Our books are open, and then make a judgment. But before looking into the facts, it is I would say it's not responsible to release statements as we see from some of the organizations.
This whole crisis has been a darling of the media, especially media who are decidedly opposition aligned. In the long run, how damaging could such a coverage be to a country that banks mostly on foreign investment and foreign trade?
I think it is very sad that this is happening, because all media should be responsible in what they report, and any call from anyone, regardless what it is, should not be broadcasted. one has to exercise their right with responsibility as well. And it is sad because at the end of the day, it is the country that is hurting, because our economy, like you said, is very much depending on the tourists that arrive in the country. And these kind of reports is damaging for our tourism, and this should not happen, because what Maldivian media should understand, that at the end of the day we serve the people of this country, and we should not hurt the people of the country. So whatever we report should be based on facts, and it should not be blown out of proportion.
Well, one of the points the government has been asked to clarify since the fateful Supreme Court ruling of the 1st of February is that there is no influence from either India or China in the current political crisis. Why the eagerness, especially on part of some media outlets, to push the Sino-Indian problems into the Maldivian political narrative?
Unfortunately, this is a situation created by, again, our own citizens, namely Nasheed, calling on Indian and making them nervous about the situation in the Maldives, and I mean blatantly lying on media, saying that there is a land grab issue in the country. 20 or 16 islands have been given for Chinese for whatever they want to do, military presence of Chinese here. I think our neighbors have to be very clear that this is the first president in the history of the Maldives who has put forward a foreign policy where India first policy was out. So we have nothing to hide on the Maldivian side. We want to work with both countries. I mean, already Indian investments are here. Hundreds of millions of dollars are invested from India, as well as China is increasingly interested to invest their money in the Maldives, where the people of the Maldives is taking advantage of it. So there is no need for China-India relationship or China-India-Maldives relation to be brought into this, and neither country should intervene into the Maldivian issues. And it's only a diplomatic, it's only a commercial relationship that we have with both countries. We know that India is our closest neighbor, and we have always been very looking up for India for security, for harmony and stability in the region, and that we have assured to India as well, that there will be no military presence in the government by any other foreign country, so that India will be threatened at any time. And I think India should understand that there is no such situation where India should be worried that the Maldivian government will do. If I talk to these rumors that President Nasheed have put forward in the media, I've told the other day, apart from tourism development, all the uninhabited islands is under my care. I can guarantee even now, right now, and I guarantee then, none of the islands under my care have been given to China. None. So India shouldn't be worried. There is no military base whatsoever in the country. I mean, foreign military base. There's not whatsoever. So there shouldn't be any nervousness. But the nervousness is created by an ex-president who is a traitor of the country, who is convicted criminal. And people should look at the profile, should look at the background of this person, and before they listen to him. I mean, when there have ever been a coup in the country, he or his family have been involved. This is the person we are talking about. So Nasheed's family have always been interested to bring a coup to the country and get into the power. When he got the power, he could not maintain the power, and again he want to come back through the best known methods of him and his family. So people should look at the background, look at the profiles of these people before they listen into to these people when it comes to the national security issues. So India should have no worries that we are a threat, or Maldives will provide an environment for India to be of concern. So we should be brothers, we should be neighbors, and we should work together. And we are a very liberal country when it comes to business. I think the people of the Maldives have seen, the international community should see, is that these 4 years of President Yamin have been the best in terms of economic development. our country's economic projects, the development projects, the amount of money we spend is more than the 40 years put together in the past. So we have achieved so much economically, we have achieved so much socially in terms of security, in terms of our GDP, because we have a very good policy, very liberal policy. So any relationship with the Maldives, with a foreign country in terms of commerce, in terms of business, should not be an issue when it comes to our neighborhood security.
Well, we have to applaud the diplomatic stance that China and India has taken despite the pressure exerted on them by the opposition. How much of a testament is this to the country's current foreign policy?
No, I think, like I said, the country, the government of India have not intervened into the situation. They have never called for military intervention. Individuals have, in the business, the media outlets have been reporting, but the Indian government knows very well that the Maldives will not do anything to harm the stability of the country and the stability of the neighborhood, because the stability of each and every one of us is important for Indian Ocean security. But like I said, a nervous situation was created by someone who have a history of trying to bring foreign influences for power. That is Nasheed, and we should be very careful with this person who is trying to create the issue. The Maldivians know him very well, and that's the reason why he is out of the country, because he can't face the Maldivians anymore. So the international community should be worried about him as well, and not let him jeopardize the whole Indian Ocean security issue, because India has nothing to be worried. And it is a testament that so far what we have done with China and India is good enough. And then, like I said, if, for example, the latest China-Maldives Free Trade Agreement was an issue, some people caught that it's not an issue, because we have before that India, Maldives, and the neighboring countries SAFTA trade agreement arrangements. So we can work things out, and we are open for trade, for business, and we are very liberal about it. And there's nothing that can be hid from the Maldives. As you very well know, we are a very small community. Something happens, everyone knows. So we can't hide a military base in the Maldives. Islands are barely a kilometer long, the longest. So it's very difficult to hide anything in the Maldives, and it's very open. People can travel around. There is no restriction in travel. The diplomats can come and travel around. So there's nothing to worry about. So it's just a scenario created, a nervousness created by a traitor of the country who unfortunately was an ex-president. So that is the situation, I think.
What is the government's game plan? The current situation is obviously not the ideal situation to have when we are looking forward for a presidential election. How are we to move beyond this and into preparations for the upcoming presidential election?
I think the presidential election preparation should be happening with the opposition as well, and I hope this is not the preparation by the opposition. Calling for violence, trying to disrupt the harmony in the country. This is not the way forward. It should be through the ballot boxes that we decide who will be the next president. I hope that the opposition strategy is not doing what they are doing now for the president's election. On part of the government coalition, we are trying to campaign to win the elections. As you know, President recently officially announced the start of his campaign for the election. So I think all the opposition parties should do the same. Leave the violence, leave all these coup attempts, and then really work for the ballot boxes. So I think this should be normalized pretty soon. The government is trying its best to bring the situation under control. Under control means to the alleged two judges and some other political opponents, to bring them to court and have a hearing, so that everyone will know what is behind this, and there was a coup attempt behind all this.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for sparing some time from your busy schedule to be with us.
Thank you.
This is Nasma Abdul Mohsen signing off, hoping to meet you again to discuss yet another issue of national importance. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant day.